The candles flickered against polished silver. Laughter echoed, too bright, too sharp. Then her voice cut through it, calm, almost amused. "Not my granddaughter. Get out." Forks froze halfway to mouths. Conversations collapsed mid-breath. My daughter's red dress skimmed the floor as she rose, hands shaking, eyes searching faces that refused to look back. No one moved. No one spoke. I felt the warmth from the fireplace, and at the same time the chill spreading through her fingers as I took her hand. We walked past the wreaths, past the glowing lights, past the people who suddenly found the walls fascinating. Somewhere behind us, a chair slid softly back into place, a quiet sound like the room sighing in relief once we were gone. That was the moment I stopped believing silence meant peace. I was 8 years old when I first understood that fairness in our house came with a hierarchy. My brother Dan sat firmly at the top. He was the golden child, my mother's mirror, my father's echo. When he spilled grape juice across the white carpet, my mom laughed and called it energy. When I did the same weeks later, she clicked her tongue and said I should learn to be careful like my brother. Even now, decades later, that sentence hums in my head like a twisted lullaby I never asked to learn. At 12, I brought home a second-place soccer trophy, gripping it so tightly my palms were damp. The kitchen floor felt cold under my bare feet. Lemon polish lingered in the air, sharp and clean. My mom didn't even glance up from her mug. "Second place is just the best loser," she said, flipping a magazine page. The trophy gleamed too brightly in the morning sun, like it was trying too hard. By dinner, it was gone, relocated to a basement shelf beside a broken blender and boxes no one ever opened. My dad wasn't cruel, he was worse than that. He was quiet, an accountant who believed problems disappeared if you didn't acknowledge them. If my mother was a storm, he was the still center that looked safe until you realized it offered no shelter. He'd pat my shoulder, murmur that I should keep the peace. Peace, in our house, was just another word for obedience. Dan and I shared the same hallway but lived in entirely different universes. His bedroom door stayed open, laughter spilling out with the scent of new sneakers and cologne. Mine stayed closed, books stacked high, a radio murmuring low enough not to bother anyone. I learned to read my mother's expressions at dinner, to anticipate corrections before they landed. Don't slouch, don't argue, don't be dramatic. When Dan crashed my father's car at 16, my mom shrugged and said boys make mistakes. When I forgot to set the table once, she reminded me that girls should know better. The rules were never written down, they were inherited, like the heavy silverware we only used on holidays. The day Dan brought home his college acceptance letter, the house erupted. Champagne popped. My mom kissed his forehead and told him he made the family proud. Cameras flashed. When I earned my scholarship the following year, she nodded and said, "Good, now you can take care of yourself." Same kitchen, same lemon scent, same hollow quiet. Years passed, but the script never shifted. Dan became the polished attorney with the right connections. I became the reliable one, the organizer, the manager. Even after I built a life in Denver, my mother's calls stayed cool and distant. They always started with, "I don't want to bother you," and ended with advice I never asked for. I used to believe if I stayed calm enough, worked hard enough, she'd soften. Every visit proved otherwise. I wasn't overlooked, I was evidence, proof that she had always been right about me. Snow clung stubbornly to the windshield on the drive back from Aspen. The heater hummed. My daughter Lily's breathing came unevenly from the back seat. Her red dress, once vibrant, looked dull beneath the gray sky. Every few minutes she sniffed, rubbing her sleeve across her nose. I focused on the road, the endless curves blurring together. When we reached Denver, the house was dark. I carried her inside, boots abandoned on the tile. She didn't ask for food, didn't explore the room. She just stood there, small, waiting for instruction. "Did I do something wrong?" she whispered. The question landed heavy, like a bruise blooming instantly. I knelt, brushed her hair back, told her no, but my mother's voice echoed underneath my reassurance, calm and lethal. "Not my granddaughter. Get out." Lily curled on the couch with her stuffed bear, eyes open but far away. I sat beside her, coat still on, gloves damp from melted snow. The clock ticked too loudly, the fridge buzzed, normal sounds that felt wrong in a space that was supposed to feel safe. I turned off the lamp. The darkness pressed in, heavy but strangely gentle. I felt my pulse, steady, awake. Upstairs, I opened my laptop not out of anger but instinct. The glow reflected a version of me that looked tired but clear. I thought about the table, the silence, the way no one intervened. Lily shifted in her sleep, reaching for empty space. That was when it clicked. It wasn't just what my mother said, it was what everyone allowed. Silence wasn't protection anymore, it was agreement. Morning came wrapped in frost. Denver winters have a way of dulling sound and sharpening thought. Lily slept on the couch, the red hem of her dress peeking out like an unhealed cut. I made coffee I didn't drink. The machine hissed and sputtered. I opened my laptop again, hands hovering. I canceled the automatic transfers to the family fund. Confirmation blinked back at me. Then email, work messages, friends. One from Dan titled, "Are you okay?" I left it unopened. By noon, my desk was covered in folders that smelled of toner and dust. Legal training had taught me one thing: being white doesn't matter, proof does. I archived everything: voicemails, emails, transfers, notes, each one labeled, dated, organized, evidence. Lily wandered in, hair messy, hope intact. "Can we decorate the tree today?" "Not today," I said softly. "Maybe soon." She nodded and went to her beads, threading them carefully, the same bracelet she'd tried to give my mother. When I called Rebecca, Dan's wife, she answered quietly. I asked about the estate. There was a pause, then relief. "She changed things last year," Rebecca said. Dan agreed. I told her I might need help. "Whatever you need," she replied. That evening, I backed everything up and locked it away. Then I drafted an anonymous email to the Aspen Philanthropic Council, the board my mother chaired, the same one that praised her values. Attached were the documents, the transfers, the recording of Lily's voice shaking as she said, "Grandma told me I'm not her granddaughter." I didn't send it yet. Timing mattered. Lily sat beside me on the couch, holding her new bracelet. "Can we send Grandma a picture?" she asked softly. I looked at her, at the tiny beads reflecting the light from the lamp. "Not tonight," I said. "Tonight we rest." When she fell asleep, I stayed awake. I scrolled through old family photos, holidays, vacations, all smiles and symmetry. Every image looked staged, cropped to hide the imbalance. I closed them, all, opened a blank message and typed 3 words into the subject line. Handled them all. Then I saved it as a draft. Days passed quietly. The world outside was still. I worked from home, answered calls, packed Lily's lunch, smiled when the teachers asked if we were okay. Every night after she slept, I returned to my desk, checked, filed, typed, signed, deleted. Each click was a small act of reclamation. On the 5th night, Rebecca messaged me, "I have something you'll want to see." A scan arrived minutes later. Official minutes from a board meeting where Mom had discussed asset consolidation. Her handwriting circled her own name next to mine, crossed out. I stared at it until the lines blurred. The document wasn't surprising, it was confirming. That weekend, snow started again. I sat on the floor beside Lily, helping her sort beads by color. She smiled when I chose blue, her favorite. "This one's for you," she said. I smiled back. "Keep it. I already have something to wear." Upstairs, the external drive blinked faintly in the dark, steady, patient. That night, after tucking her in, I returned to the computer. The cursor blinked against the blank email like a heartbeat. I attached everything, every receipt, every log, every file. I added no words, no explanation, just a single line before the attachments, for review. My finger hovered over send. Somewhere, a heater hummed steady and low. I thought of my mother's dining room, the light, the laughter, the silence. I thought of Lily's voice in that silence, the sound of something breaking that no one heard but me. Then I clicked. The send icon flashed once, then disappeared. I leaned back in my chair. The house was quiet, except for the faint whir of the laptop fan and the snow tapping against the window. Outside, streetlights turned the falling snow to gold. For the first time, it didn't look cold. It looked clean. The morning after I sent the email, the air felt thinner, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I poured coffee, sat by the window, and waited, not for a response, just for movement. Snow slid off the branches outside, soft thuds breaking the silence. By noon, the first vibration came. My phone lit up with the name I knew would come first, Mom. One missed call, then another, then a third. I turned the screen face down on the table. By 5 o'clock, there were 29. The last voicemail began with her voice breaking. "Avery, please don't do this. Please." Her tone wasn't sharp now. It was small. The kind of small that doesn't fit a woman like her. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The system was already moving. Emails flooded my inbox, forwarded statements, press requests, formal letters from the Aspen Philanthropic Council. Board members request urgent clarification from Mrs. Whitmore regarding financial irregularities. Her entire empire had been built on reputation, and reputation, I'd learned, collapses faster than love. By evening, the first headline appeared: Aspen socialite under review for estate manipulation. Her portrait was everywhere: perfect pearls, perfect smile, the same face that told my daughter she didn't belong. I imagined her sitting in her office, the one overlooking the frozen lake, clutching her phone with both hands. I could almost hear the tremor in her breath as she called Dan, because she always called him first. Sure enough, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Dan. He didn't wait for me to say hello. "What the hell did you do, Avery? The board's losing their minds. Mom's name is trending. Do you realize what this means for the family?" I leaned back in the chair. "You mean for her?" He exhaled sharply. "For all of us. Her reputation, my practice." I cut him off. She made her choices. I just let people see them. There was a pause. I could hear his kids in the background. Laughter, a door closing, a world he'd built under her shadow. Then his voice dropped lower. "You didn't have to go this far." I almost laughed. "She told my daughter to get out of her house, Dan." He went silent. A long beat, just static, then quietly, "You really said everything." "Yes." He sighed, half defeated, half resigned. Rebecca warned me this would happen. I should have listened. When the call ended, I felt no satisfaction, just stillness. I walked to the window. The street outside glowed under the amber lamps. Cars passed in slow rhythm, unaware that somewhere up in Aspen, my mother's world was coming apart piece by piece. A new message arrived. "Rebecca." It was a photo, a copy of an official notice. "Effective immediately, Margaret Whitmore is suspended pending investigation." Underneath, Rebecca had written only 2 words: "It's done." For a moment, I couldn't move. The image looked unreal, like something from someone else's story. Then Lily's small footsteps padded into the room. She rubbed her eyes, climbed into my lap, and rested her head against my chest. "Grandma called again," she murmured. I didn't answer. I kissed her hair. "That's okay." The phone buzzed again on the table, Mom's name lighting up one last time. I let it ring. The sound filled the room for a few seconds, then stopped. Silence settled heavy, but it didn't hurt anymore. In that quiet, I realized justice didn't sound like gavel strikes or apologies. It sounded like this: steady breathing, warm skin, no fear. Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the lights hummed softly over our heads. Mom would call again, maybe 100 times. Maybe she'd send letters or tears or promises. But there are things you can't undo once the world sees the truth. I looked down at Lily, her fingers tracing the edge of my sleeve, and whispered, "It's over now." And for the first time, I believed it. That night, the house felt weightless. No voices, no demands, no echo of judgment traveling through the walls. Just the low hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of the wooden floor when I moved. Lily was asleep on the couch, her small bracelet catching the lamplight, blue, green, gold, the colors of her own making. I sat beside her, phone in hand, 29 missed calls, one unread message from my mother. The preview line read, "Please, Avery, we can fix this." I stared at it for a long time, thumb hovering over the screen. Then I opened a new message instead, typed slowly, "You'd better start praying." I hit send. The sound was soft, almost delicate, like the click of a door locking. For a moment I waited for guilt to arrive. It didn't. The air felt clearer, sharper, almost clean. Through the window, the snow had stopped. Streetlights painted the world in quiet gold. I turned off the phone and placed it face down. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was earned. I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stood by the sink. The reflection in the window looked different now. Not softer, not harder, just mine. When I checked on Lily, she stirred, eyes half open. "Are we safe now?" she whispered. "Yes," I said, "we are." She smiled in her sleep, the smallest, most ordinary smile, but it held more peace than any apology could give. Outside, a car passed, its headlights sweeping across the walls before disappearing. The room dimmed again, leaving only the warmth of the lamp and the steady rhythm of our breathing. For the first time in years, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel less. I felt done. Morning came slow, pale light spilling through the curtains. Lily sat on the porch steps, her bracelet glinting in the sun. I joined her, coffee steaming in my hands, the air still carrying the scent of snow. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. Across the street, someone's wind chime caught the breeze, a soft sound of movement where everything else was still. I looked at my daughter, at the calm she carried now, and thought, this is what peace sounds like. Not forgiveness, not victory, just quiet. If you've ever rebuilt yourself from silence, stay a while.